Welcome to Cruise News, your daily update on everything happening at sea. Visit cruisenews.io to see today's stories and sign up for email alerts.
Imagine waking up on a luxury winter getaway, stepping out onto your private balcony with your morning coffee and watching military interceptor missiles streak across the sky.
Yeah, that is definitely not the morning view you expect on a cruise.
Right, not exactly a movie set. That was the actual surreal reality for thousands of passengers in the Middle East last month.
It's wild, and I think it really highlights how the cruising landscape right now is just shifting with incredible speed.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, from sudden geopolitical disruptions that just instantly freeze operations to the crushing weight of overtourism closing down these iconic ports.
Yeah, and even down to the ships themselves, right? We're seeing radically redesigned next-generation ships that honestly barely look like traditional ships anymore.
Exactly. The industry is evolving in ways that fundamentally change what you will experience as a passenger and, well, how you need to plan your vacations moving forward. We're basically looking at an industry that's being forced to completely rewrite its operational playbook.
Yeah, and we have three developments today that capture this evolution perfectly.
Right. So first, we're going to look at the mechanics of how a closed sky essentially trapped a massive floating city in the Arabian Gulf.
Which is just a crazy logistical story.
It really is. And then we'll look at how the structural breaking point of local infrastructure is quietly erasing these, bucket list Mediterranean itineraries. And finally, we'll explore the engineering reality of battery-powered vessels, ships that eliminate the iconic cruise ship funnel entirely to make way for massive new onboard attractions.
Let's start with the Middle East situation because it really exposes the hidden fragility of these massive modern cruise operations.
Yeah, we need to talk about the MSC Euribia.
Right. And to put this in perspective for you listening, this is a 183,500 gross ton vessel.
Which is huge.
Massive. And if you don't track maritime measurements, gross tonnage isn't the physical weight of the ship, it's a measure of internal volume. So this ship is essentially a sprawling resort.
Right. It carries over 6,000 guests.
And MSC Cruises just had to suspend the entire winter Arabian Gulf program for this massive asset due to the regional tensions.
Yeah, and the timeline of that suspension really illustrates the sheer scale of the logistical bottleneck they faced.
So walk us through what happened.
Well, the MSC Euribia pulled into Dubai on February 27th, 2026.
Okay.
And the itinerary had it scheduled to depart the very next day for Doha, Qatar. But then, the military tensions involving Iran triggered these severe immediate airspace restrictions.
And that just shuts everything down.
Completely. Regional port operations were heavily disrupted. So as a result, that colossal ship was functionally held in Dubai, unable to move until mid-April.
Mid-April. Wow. People hear a ship is stuck and they probably think, well, it's on the water. Just point the bow toward the ocean and sail away.
Right, yeah, like it's a giant speedboat or something.
Exactly. But that ignores the entire mechanism of the modern fly cruise model. It is a highly complex, precarious game of dominoes.
It really is.
A ship that size relies on a constant, tightly choreographed flow of embarking and disembarking passengers arriving via commercial aviation.
Yep. On a typical turnaround day, you have thousands of people flying in to get on and thousands flying out to go home.
Right. So when the airspace closes, that infrastructure just vanishes. The departing guests can't leave, which means arriving guests have no cabins.
Exactly.
A closed sky doesn't just trap airplanes, it physically traps a ship. So how exactly does a cruise line manage the logistics of a trapped floating city when the sky above it is essentially closed for business?
Well, what people don't realize is that commercial airlines don't just have, spare jumbo jets sitting idly on the tarmac in Dubai waiting for a cruise line to call.
Right, they're not just waiting around.
No, so MSC essentially had to become an ad hoc, specialized airline and repatriation service overnight. When the air corridors shut down, the standard commercial flight schedules were slashed. Available seats just vanished.
So what do?
They had to initiate intense negotiations with regional carriers, specifically Emirates and Etihad, practically begging for priority boarding for their displaced cruise guests.
While normal commercial passengers were probably also scrambling to rebook.
Exactly. It was chaos.
But the math doesn't work if they only rely on standard commercial seats, right? I mean, the volume of stranded people is simply too high for a few open seats in coach, to solve the problem.
Oh, yeah. Commercial seats were just a drop in the bucket. MSC had to start buying up entire charter flights at their own staggering expense.
I can't even imagine that, Bill.
It had to be massive. And they had to organize departures from multiple regional airports just to spread the load, coordinating out of Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Muscat.
Just to get people out of there.
Right. And furthermore, they were securing spots on government-organized evacuation flights.
Wait, government flights?
Yeah. That requires a level of diplomatic intervention usually reserved for state actors. They were navigating foreign office bureaucracy and embassy clearances while the airspace was actively restricted.
That is wild.
But by March 6th, through all of those chaotic channels, they actually managed to arrange flights home for over 1,500 guests.
Meanwhile, you have passengers actually living on the ship while all this high-stakes diplomatic maneuvering is happening behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And if you are stuck in a geopolitical hotspot, the immediate fear has to be isolation.
Oh, for sure. But the onboard environment was reportedly quite calm, which is honestly a huge testament to the crew.
Yeah, that takes real professional skill.
Absolutely. MSC kept the guests on board to maintain a secure environment while the travel logistics were hammered out. They did permit limited shore access, but they heavily advised people to stay within the immediate vicinity of the terminal.
Makes sense.
And they completely canceled and refunded all the shore excursions. But the most crucial move was opening up the onboard Wi-Fi entirely for free.
Oh, that's huge. Keeping the internet flowing is a massive detail.
Right.
Because cutting thousands of anxious people off from their families and their own ability to monitor the news, that would just invite panic.
Totally.
But they were absolutely not insulated from the reality of the region. I saw a quote from a passenger from Scotland, Leslie Ballantyne, who described hearing distant, heavy bangs and watching interceptor missiles crossing the sky directly from the ship's decks.
Yeah, that is...
that is an incredibly jarring, surreal intrusion into what was supposed to be a relaxing winter holiday.
Yeah, another passenger noted the sheer shock of just finding themselves adjacent to an active military zone.
Yeah, no kidding.
And the operational friction didn't end the moment the last passenger boarded a flight home either.
Oh, right, the domino effect.
Exactly. It rippled straight into the European season. The Euribia was scheduled to reposition to northern Europe for the spring.
But it couldn't leave.
Right. Because it was pinned down in Dubai for weeks, the vessel physically could not make the journey in time. MSC was forced to cancel the Euribia's May 2nd season opening, sailing out of Kiel, Germany.
Oh, man. And consider the maritime traffic once the region started moving again. Cargo vessels and massive oil tankers navigating the Strait of Hormuz, they take absolute priority over a leisure cruise ship trying to exit the Gulf.
Oh, yeah. The system simply pushes cruise traffic to the back of the line.
So where does the Euribia stand right now?
Well, the vessel finally cleared Dubai on April 23rd. It successfully and safely navigated the Strait of Hormuz after intense coordination with regional maritime authorities, and it is actively sailing toward northern Europe right now.
Okay, good.
MSC intends to resume the scheduled itineraries from Kiel starting May 16th.
So they're getting back on track.
Slowly but surely. But the stark takeaway for the broader industry is MSC's immediate strategitic shift. They've signaled they will likely not return to the Middle East for these winter itineraries until late 2027 at the earliest.
Wow. Well, you can't operate a reliable mass-market vacation product when the fundamental infrastructure can just evaporate overnight.
Exactly.
So if the Middle East demonstrates how quickly megaships become a massive liability in a crisis, it kind of begs the question, where are all of these displaced ships going?
Well, they're retreating into perceived safe zones, right?
Yeah.
Like the Mediterranean.
Right. And that brings us to an entirely different crisis, the breaking point of local infrastructure.
Yeah, we are seeing the compounding pressure of overtourism. It's a slower structural force compared to a sudden airspace closure, but it dictates exactly the same result. Your itinerary is going to change.
And we're seeing that happen right now. Carnival Cruise Line is currently altering 2 10-night Mediterranean sailings on the Carnival Miracle, scheduled for October 2027.
Yep.
These are the October 16th and October 26th departures sailing out of Rome. They are entirely removing the iconic port of Santorini from the schedule.
Just completely gone.
Yeah, gone. In its place, they are substituting Suda Bay on the island of Crete, which, serves as the gateway to the historic city of Chornia.
And it's interesting how they handled the messaging for this. The corporate communication from Carnival to their booked guests framed this as a, quote, Slight adjustment.
Slight adjustment.
Yeah. They emphasize that the overarching routing through Greece, Turkey, and Italy remains entirely intact.
Yeah.
Guests will still visit Mykonos, Athens, and Naples. And Carnival is automatically processing refunds for any pre-purchased shore excursions, specifically for Santorini.
Okay, let's stop and look at that phrasing for a second. Carnival calls swapping Santorini for Crete a slight adjustment in their official guest letter.
Right.
But, I mean, come on. If you booked a multi-thousand-dollar Mediterranean cruise, specifically to stand on those cliffs and see those famous blue-domed roofs in Santorini, a substitution for Suda Bay is a massive fundamental change to your vacation.
Oh, absolutely.
That is a bucket list destination that drives the initial booking for a huge percentage of passengers.
Yeah, people plan years in advance for that specific photo.
Exactly. So how does a move like this signal a permanent shift in how you need to manage your expectations when planning a trip?
Well, it really exposes the friction between marketing departments and logistical reality, To a corporate planner, swapping one Greek island for another in the same general maritime sector is merely an adjustment on a routing spreadsheet.
Right, it's just changing a line of text.
But the passenger psychology is completely different. But the reality is, Carnival has almost no leverage here.
Why is that?
The structural context of the Mediterranean right now is undeniable. Santorini is at its absolute breaking point.
Yeah, because the geography of Santorini makes it a massive bottleneck. Ships anchor in the caldera, and thousands of people have to use tender boats.
Which takes forever.
Right, and then they all funnel into a single cable car line, or they have to walk up these really steep cliffside stairs just to reach the town.
Yeah, and the local Greek government has finally stepped in to stop the crush of human traffic. To combat the overtourism, Greece has mandated a strict 8,000 passenger daily cap on Santorini taking effect in 2025.
Okay, and if you look at the math on that, 8,000 passengers is barely 1.5 modern megaships.
Exactly. It's nothing. And on top of that hard cap, there are seasonal cruise taxes ranging from 12 to 20 euros per individual visitor that have actually been active since 2022.
Wow.
So the destination is basically throwing up these economic and legislative walls, telling the industry that the local infrastructure simply cannot absorb these crowds.
So the cruise lines are being forced to find regional relief valves.
Right. Suda Bay offers actual pure infrastructure, and Chania has this gorgeous Venetian harbor with deep medieval history, but it is undeniably a different cultural experience than Santorini.
For sure. So if you are sitting at home right now looking at a brochure for a 2027 Mediterranean cruise, you really have to read the fine print.
Oh,
You might book for the Blue Domes and end up in Crete instead. The days of booking a massive megaship with the absolute guarantee of pulling into a tiny, fragile destination, I mean, they're ending.
they're definitely ending. The industry is systematically being forced to disperse its massive footprint,
Yeah.
and that operational shift actually feeds directly into the technological shift we're seeing.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, because geopolitical tension and port crowding dictate where the ships are allowed to go. But aggressive environmental regulations are dictating what the ships will actually look like and how the onboard experience is engineered.
Right, which brings us to the Sea Trade Cruise Global event,
Yes?
where the prominent German shipbuilder Meyer Werft unveiled a radical new concept called Project Vision. This is a design for an 82,000 gross ton cruise ship with a capacity for 1,856 passengers. But the defining feature here is that it is engineered to be fully battery electric.
Which is just a monumental leap in maritime engineering. Meyer Werft is developing this alongside Cordis Energy, which is a Norwegian firm specializing in advanced marine energy storage systems.
Okay.
And they're projecting up to a 95% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions when compared to vessels burning conventional marine diesel fuels.
But how do you physically power an 82,000-ton steel vessel using batteries?
Yeah, it's a fair question.
I mean, we're not talking about a lightweight river ferry here. The energy density required to push a ship that size through the ocean is staggering compared to what diesel fuel provides.
Right, and that energy density issue entirely dictates the routing. You cannot take a purely battery electric ship of this size across the Pacific Ocean.
So where does it go?
The concept is strictly engineered for short, localized European routes. Meyer Werft actually uses the example of sailing from Barcelona to Rome.
Okay, that makes sense.
The operational model requires the ship to run entirely on its battery banks while navigating between ports, and then, physically plug into the local grid to recharge during the port call.
But that shifts the burden entirely onto the destination.
Yeah.
The ports themselves have to be wired to deliver a colossal amount of electricity directly to the pier.
Exactly. The entire concept hinges on shifting European regulatory policy. They are really banking on the European Union's Fit for 55 regulatory package.
Right. And for context, Fit for 55 refers to the legal mandate for the EU to cut net greenhouse gas emissions by at least 55% by the year 2030.
Right. And part of that legislative package legally mandates that passenger ships must connect to shore power at major European ports by 2030.
Wow.
So Meyer Werft is looking at that law and calculating that by the end of the decade, approximately 100 European ports will be forced to have this massive electrical grid infrastructure active and ready to plug into.
That's fascinating. But honestly, the impact this has on the physical design of the ship is what really caught my eye.
Oh, it's so cool.
Because you're stripping out these massive combustion engines and the heavy exhaust scrubber systems. The ship literally does not have a traditional funnel on the top deck.
It's just gone.
Right. And think about what a ship's funnel actually is. It isn't just a little chimney sitting on the roof.
No.
It is the top of a massive exhaust trunk that cuts vertically through the entire center core of the ship, eating up prime real estate on every single passenger deck.
Tons of space.
So removing it, it's exactly like the shift from gas cars to electric vehicles.
Oh, that's a perfect comparison.
Like when you remove the massive engine block from the front of a car, suddenly you gain a front trunk or a frunk.
Right, the frunk.
On a ship, removing that vertical exhaust trunk opens up an unbelievable amount of structural space.
And Meyer Werft is capitalizing on every square inch of that newly available real estate.
What are they doing with it?
They're designing radically open sun decks with completely unobstructed sightlines. And because this ship is targeted at European routes, which, deal with cooler and highly variable weather, they are utilizing the space at the stern to build a massive, fully enclosed, all-weather indoor aquapark.
That sounds incredible.
Right. Furthermore, eliminating the giant diesel engines fundamentally changes the physical sensation of the voyage.
Less shaking. Right.
Exactly. It means vastly reduced mechanical vibration and a near elimination of engine noise for the guests on board.
Okay, so a completely silent, vibration-free ship with a giant indoor water park instead of a smokestack sounds amazing.
It really does.
But looking at the reaction within the maritime community, the pushback is immediate, and it is loud.
Oh, definitely.
Critics are raising serious red flags about the physics of this concept. They point to severe weather reliability, like what happens when a storm forces the ship to battle heavy swells for days, rapidly depleting the batteries.
Yeah, that's a big concern.
And even more urgently, they point to the catastrophic risk of a battery fire hazard on the open ocean. So, is the industry genuinely ready to plug a massive 1,800-passenger vessel into a wall, or is this just a utopian rendering designed to generate press?
Well, the skepticism regarding thermal runaway and lithium-ion batteries is a huge debate in maritime engineering right now.
I bet.
But Corvus Energy isn't just strapping standard automotive batteries into a hull.
Right.
These are highly specialized marine-grade cells. They're built with aggressive thermal runaway barriers that are designed to physically isolate and contain any internal fire before it can spread.
Okay, that makes sense.
The CEO of Corvus insists the safety architecture is mature enough for this scale. However, Meyer Werft is actually being highly pragmatic about the weather and range anxieties you just highlighted.
How so?
They concede that a pure 100% battery system is not globally viable yet, so they have engineered the hull to accommodate a hybrid generator option.
Oh, a backup system.
Exactly. If a cruise line wants the flexibility to run longer transatlantic repositioning routes, or simply wants a fail-safe layer of redundancy for battling severe storms, they can install smaller, highly efficient generators to supplement the battery drain.
So the design has built-in flexibility. It's not an uncompromising all-or-nothing leap right out of the gate.
The design is flexible, yeah, but the proposed timeline is actually incredibly aggressive.
Really? How fast are we talking?
Meyer Werft states that if a cruise line finalized an order for Project Vision today, they could physically construct and deliver the first vessel by 2031.
Wow, 2031.
Yeah.
That's right around the corner.
Right. They are aggressively signaling to the market that rapid decarbonization is not some distant 50-year fantasy. The physical architecture exists today.
It really points toward a radically different rhythm of cruising.
It absolutely does. And, when you pull all of these shifting forces together, it leaves us with a really compelling question about the future of this kind of travel.
Yeah.
As overtourism forces traditional bucket list destinations like Santorini to drastically cap visitor numbers, and as massive next-generation electric ships require highly specialized, localized charging infrastructure to function, we really have to ask.
Are we witnessing the end of the sprawling, unconstrained, globe-trotting mega-cruise?
Exactly. Are we entering an era where the industry is replaced by highly localized, tightly controlled regional power hops?
Thanks for listening to Cruise News. Visit cruisenews.io to catch up on the latest updates and sign up for free email alerts.